The following program is sponsored by the Building Wisconsin Television Network.
Welcome to Building Wisconsin. I'm Stuart Keith, and on today's show, we're going to cover a lead water service line replacement project here in the city of Milwaukee. So let's get started with Wisconsin's Secretary of Workforce Development, Caleb Frostman. Well, Caleb, quite an investment in equipment for this contractor.
Yeah, it takes a lot to get it done right. This is pretty impressive.
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting that the last time you and I saw each other, we were at Steamfitter 601, that new fabulous training facility near Madison. Now we're down in Milwaukee at Plumbers 75 Training Center. What brings you here today?
We're here to kind of discuss the importance of replacing lead pipes throughout Wisconsin. So we're here to discuss the health effects and then also the workforce development aspect as well.
Sure. Well, when you hear the term lead pipe, you know, as a parent myself, it just scares you, thinking the last thing you want exposed to your children is lead in a water supply that we take for granted. And unfortunately, as I understand it, a lot of our communities around the state are dealing with this issue.
They are, and it's definitely an equality of opportunity issue. We want to make sure all of our Wisconsin residents have the proper head start, the proper ability, and the effects of lead, obviously, and neurological development are pretty well researched, and so we want to make sure that we're being strategic and forward thinking about addressing these things.
Well, you know, numerous times on Building Wisconsin, I always say the role of government really is infrastructure and safety, and when you talk about lead pipe abatement, that tackles both those topics.
It does, yeah. That's kind of the stuff that keeps you up at night is our kids being exposed to lead, and do we have the professionals available and trained to replace those? And I think in Wisconsin, we're looking to get that done.
Well, on today's show, what we get to do is visit a project where it's actually being done. And a lot of people think about, oh, it's just a couple plumbers going out there, and how skilled do they really have to be? Well, they're going to learn on today's show that it takes a lot of big equipment, a lot of investment. That's why so much money is needed from our government to help the homeowners out and our communities.
Absolutely. Between the equipment, the training, making sure it's safe, making sure it's done effectively, there's a ton of investment that goes on, and we want to make sure it's done right and done right the first time.
Sure, and being relatively new in your position as Secretary of DWD, are you getting out to a lot of these training centers? I mean, are these a good model to follow as far as our workforce here in Wisconsin?
They are a great model. We've been getting out to quite a few of them, but seeing whether it's youth apprenticeship or registered apprenticeship or just, you know, the combination of hands-on learning and classroom learning and the experiential piece of the folks that have been here and know what they're doing, it's really impactful for the folks getting into the field, and so we've been really pleased to make these stops, and they've been really inspiring for us as we kind of put together our plan going forward.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We're going to go learn more about this lead abatement.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Well, Steve, I was just out at Plumbers 75 with Caleb Frostman learning about workforce development and how he's traveling around the state checking out training centers like yours. I'm excited because we're out here in downtown Milwaukee and we're seeing workforce development in the real world?
This is where training and workforce development all comes together, and we're testing the effectiveness of our training and our partnership with good contractors like Mid-City Plumbing here, who run a professional operation or know what they're doing. You know, we got multi-trades working together. We got licensed plumbers, we got operators. Everybody's doing their part to get this project done, and it's really rewarding for a guy like me to see how our training pays off in the real world and is an advantage for one of our employers like Mid-City Plumbing.
Yeah, and you mentioned your employer, Mid-City Plumbing. They have quite the investment in equipment, and that's a testament to their dedication to the industry.
There's no question. I mean, this type of infrastructure investment involves so much equipment, technology, tools, different scenarios that you have to adjust and adapt to. I mean, all the things that you're going to hit under the ground. Once they start this project, they got to be done in a day. Turn it off and turn it on in the same day. So they got to be prepared for every variable and every condition that they may expose as they're digging under the ground, which who knows what the last guy put in there.
Yeah, and on today's show, we're going to learn more about exactly what they're doing. But just in a nutshell, they're replacing the lead pipe laterals going into the house, right?
Yep, exactly. Lead services were pretty popular back in the day, and you know, we found that they're not as safe as we once thought, so we're upgrading those as part of our infrastructure investment in our community and public safety. The city of Milwaukee's got about 70,000 lead services that they're replacing. This street here has got about 100 of them they're working on right now, and Mid-City's coordinating the efforts and get this done.
Well, with thousands of homes, upwards of 70,000 homes just in the Milwaukee area, it really is an issue that needs to be tackled. And we're fortunate that the skilled, highly trained workforce here to do it properly. And I mean that. I mean, it comes back to the basic training when you're talking about being a plumber, what it takes to do work like this.
There's no question. You need the training, and you got to be efficient. You got to get it in and out. And again, we're investing in training to help our communities invest in their infrastructure and for overall public health and safety and security.
Yeah, and plumbing's not a career that you just wake up one day and say, I think this week I want to be a plumber. We've touched on it on previous shows, but let's just quickly walk through that. I mean, it is a 5-year apprenticeship just to get your feet wet and become a licensed plumber, right?
To be a plumber, it's a 5-year apprenticeship. So Tim here, he's gone through a 5-year apprenticeship program. He's a foreman on the crew. But we have multiple trades here too, or all have their training as well. The operators, the laborers, the electricians. This is a pretty tight environment. I mean, we got cars, trucks, roads, neighbors, trees. This guy's got to know what he's doing on that machine. This guy's got to know how to help them. He's got to plan out how they're going to coordinate this connection to the public side and hook it up into the private side. So you got the homeowners, you got the city, you got the trades. Everybody's working in together, and then at the same time, they have the least interruption to the public or the homeowner.
Sure, just blows my mind. And you know, when we talk about everything that you just mentioned there, to me it screams of infrastructure. So many of our shows we talk about rebuilding our roads, highways, bridges, our iconic buildings, different run-down, dilapidated buildings. But seldom do we get a chance to look underground and see what is happening. I mean, a lot of these pipes, heck, this is probably a 1920s neighborhood. These pipes are original there. Think about that. That's going on 100 years. I bet when they put them in, they weren't counting on them being here for 100 years.
Exactly. The stuff was put in pretty well originally, and it's still working for the most part. But again, it's infrastructure upgrade, give that public security and safety a facelift, and make sure that people can be confident in their services. That's what we expect. And as plumbers, it's part of our job to make sure that water gets delivered safely and is good for the consumer.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. I always say one of the roles of government is infrastructure. And it's up to us to fix it now and not pass along these issues to our children and our grandchildren. So, Steve, I want to learn more about this particular process. I'm going to catch up with Tom Zoulek from Mid-City Plumbing to learn more about not only the project, but the investment and all this equipment that he has. Thanks for coming on.
Great. Thank you, Stu.
Well, Tom, great day for replacing some pipe. Your guys are hard at work. And before we get into that process, tell us a little bit about this project that you're working on.
Sure. So this is a City of Milwaukee public contract. It's official notice number 40. This is a water main relay and lead service replacement project.
So is it more than just one location then?
Yes, it's multiple streets, primarily in this subdivision. It's approximately 3,000 to 4,000 feet of water main and about 110 water services.
Wow, that sounds like quite a bit of pipe you're replacing.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of their larger projects this year.
And as I look around here, these look to be pretty old homes.
Yeah, we're vintage 1920s, maybe 1930s in this area.
Okay, so you said you're not only replacing the services or the laterals to the homes, some of the main is being replaced as well?
Correct. So like the block behind you, the water main has already been replaced. That was the original vintage 1920s water main. So now a new ductile iron water main was installed.
Okay, but on this street they're not
This
replacing?
street is different. This street was replaced in 1984, I believe. And here they hooked back on to the existing lead services. So now we are going from that 1984 main into the house with new copper.
And as I understand it, they're planning to resurface this or repave this road. So now's a good time to be fixing the infrastructure.
And that's why it was timed that way. So I believe in September they're going to be replacing this road.
Okay, well let's take a look and learn more about this process. Now, Tom, I can hear the bullet. It's obviously pounding a hole through here. It looks like it's ready to come out. Why do you have two separate holes?
The reason for this hole here is for the curb stop. The curb stop is this device here. It's going to be the valve that allows the city to isolate your home from the main in case of an emergency.
Oh, so is this where it gets differentiated between privately owned and publicly owned?
Exactly. This becomes that line right here. Right after the valve, it becomes privately owned. It's publicly owned on the street side.
Okay, so a curb stop, you called it. Why is there some plastic in here?
So in the city of Milwaukee, we install what's called an insulator coupling. An insulator coupling takes stray electrical current and stops it from continuing to the water main.
Oh, so for safety reasons, you don't want that?
Well, for safety reasons and for electrolysis. Stray electrical currents can create electrolysis and eventually rot out the water main.
And so again, with this infrastructure replacement, you want it to last as long as possible, so that's thinking ahead right there.
Exactly.
Now, you called that a curb stop.
Yep.
That's buried 6, 7 feet down.
Correct.
How is the city able to shut off the water if you need it turned off?
The access for it is going to be by this device here, which is called a buffalo box or curb stop box. This sits on top of that valve, and then what the city can do is use a key that looks like this, drop it down, and be able to turn that ball valve off.
Oh, I see. And so this is called a key. That fits over top of the valve, and you simply twist it right off.
Correct.
So I've seen those in sidewalks before.
Exactly.
And now I understand how they work. And it has to, of course, be buried that far down, as you previously mentioned, because of the frost. If we get a winter like last winter, it could go down 5 feet.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't want it freezing. Okay, so when I look back here in the hole, all that I can think about is danger. I mean, you don't know what's buried underneath the ground. You don't know what's buried under our sidewalks, our streets. These guys have to be pretty experienced and highly trained to be working here, don't they?
Definitely. It all starts back in the office with good pre-planning, hotline organization, training from their unions to teach them how to do this work, and field experience, years of field experience. We also go through specialized training to work around these utilities.
Yeah, now do you ever run into anything that's rotted out down there?
Oh yeah, you're working right next to the sewers. These sewers are vintage of the home. Sewers are clay tiles. Those a lot of times are damaged and have to be fixed. And also a lot of these contracts are for leaking services. So as we're digging in a wet hole where the service is leaking.
Get out of here. So the main leading into the house, the lateral, is actually fractured and leaking out?
Correct. Currently right now in the city of Milwaukee, they have an ordinance that if it's leaking and it's a lead service, we have to replace it. So we're working on a leaking service, excavating it, and we don't want to shut the main off, put other people out of service. So we excavate while it's leaking.
It's challenging repairing our 100-year-old infrastructure, that's for sure. And so when I look down there, I can see the bullet coming through right there, so the viewers get an idea of what we're talking about, how it pounds its way through. But then alongside, I see a new copper pipe. What's that?
That new copper pipe has already been pulled from the house, from the basement to the curb stop hole. So that is going to be the new copper water supply going into the house.
How are you able to pull that copper pipe from the basement out here?
The hole is large enough that you can pull it through, either pull it through with a machine or pull it through by hand.
No kidding.
All depends, yeah. And a lot of it has to do with ground conditions.
Really? And that looked like it took a little while to get through there. Is that because it's been undisturbed dirt versus the old one?
That
over
is
by the
old.
tree?
That is virgin soil.
Okay, well let's follow this copper pipe inside and take a look at that end of the project.
Let's do it.
So Stu, before we go over to the house that already has a new service line installed, new meter, I thought we should stop in here and take a look at what it looks like ahead of that.
Hey, it looks like a good example of what you guys deal with on a daily basis. The guys, I assume, were in here this morning, cutting out some concrete, digging down, working in cramped quarters. Pretty common?
Exactly. This is a common basement, City of Milwaukee. This is a terrace-style home. So here we can't go through the basement wall because we won't get our 6 feet of cover outside. We need to have enough cover on that pipe so it doesn't freeze.
So you're coming in underneath the footing.
We're going to come in underneath the footing here. Yep, so we have to have a slot long enough to be able to drill out.
Okay, and this is the existing water supply. Is that lead pipe coming in?
Correct. So this right here is a 3/4 inch lead service that's coming in. And you can see some work has been done with this in the past. Somebody had to replace the main valve into the house. Okay. So they cut the lead off, they put a lead pack coupling and a new valve in. So here they would have utilized that valve out by the curb stop, if it worked, to shut the water off.
Okay, and so that's going to go away, right?
Correct. When we're all said and done, they're going to have a new meter assembly, which we'll see in the next house, that's mounted on the wall over there. And then we're going to connect back on up here in the ceiling right here.
Okay, and just because you're replacing the lead service line coming in doesn't necessarily mean that the house doesn't have any lead pipe then.
That's correct. There could be lead on the private side after the meter that we're unaware of. Most of the time, though, we see that right here. Because what would happen is the lead on the outlet side of the meter would go back into the floor and then come up in the back of the house.
Oh, okay. So you have a pretty good idea once you see her.
Correct.
To
and
let the homeowner know.
When we see that, we let the homeowner know. And they can opt to have that replaced if they want.
Okay. So as I look here, take us through what the next step is here.
So the next step here is he's going to use this air-operated tool here, and he's going to drill out to that curb stop hole that's already been pre-dug. When they're drilled through, they will pull a chain back. They'll hook onto the copper that's behind you and pull that out to the curb stop hole.
Oh, and the copper pipe is right here already, and we saw out there they were able to pull it in that application, but you said not always the case.
Not always. It depends on the ground. If the ground collapses around the drill bit, if it's not cohesive, if the hole's not big enough. And then there's a third part of this that comes in too, is we have to update the electrical grounding.
Oh,
so after this is installed, we're going to have an electrician come in, which will be later today, and he's going to rework this ground as necessary to the new meter setting.
Boy, 4 different trades to take care of this issue in one home. Okay, let's head over to the other one and see the completed project.
Sounds good.
You can see this one's nearing completion, that's for sure, but as I look at it, where is the old service? I mean, I don't see anything cut off at the floor.
So Stu, if you remember when we were outside, the existing service, the existing curb stop was next to the tree.
Oh, that's right.
And we didn't want to dig next to the tree. Exactly. So in this house, behind this wall in this closet, is where the old water service was.
Okay, so when I poke my head around there,
you can see where he's come up to the floor.
And I can see the old electrical grounding coming in there, and then that must have come through where it's cut out at the bottom and tie into right up here?
Correct, and that's where the old meter was, and it came up and it tied into that existing 3/4 inch galvanized.
So this is what your crew did. They put all this in.
Yep.
Now, this is where the new meter is going to go then?
Correct. So this is an upgraded meter setting. When we were in the other house, you saw the meter was on the floor. This is an upgraded setting, and the water department will be here this afternoon to put a new water meter in.
And the electrician will be here as well? So
yes, the electrician has to alter that ground that's on the other side of the wall and tie onto this.
Do you need to pull a permit for this type of work?
Yeah, there's multiple permits. So a project like this has DPW permits for the excavations in the road, the restoration, and there's also plumbing permits that are involved, along with water service connection permits. All that stuff gets recorded at the city in their database. The work on the private side all has to be done by a licensed master plumber.
And that's good. You have to have an experienced professional licensed plumber doing this type of work, because you're thinking of it's public safety, it's the homeowner's safety, it's the kids' safety. I mean, you want it done correctly. You don't want somebody coming in here with little or no experience.
Correct. The other person that has to pull a permit is the electrician. So there's an electrical permit too by their master electrician.
And with all these permits being pulled, I assume you need to have the inspectors come out and inspect all the work?
Yeah, so later this afternoon there'll be a plumbing inspector that'll come out and inspect all of this. The city side is inspected by the full-time inspector that's here.
Okay, yeah, I saw him out there walking around checking things out. So good, you have a system of checks and balances. The homeowners can rest assured that this issue has been taken care of. Appreciate you coming on and walking us through the process.
Thank you.
Building Wisconsin is made possible by the members of Plumbers 75, proudly serving their contractors and helping build Wisconsin for over 100 years.
We all know the most basic form of life requires clean water to survive. On Earth, we need it to drink, cook, clean, and it touches just about every part of our quality of life. Here in Wisconsin, we appreciate the value of clean water even more as we live alongside the Great Lakes. Yet we often forget to think about how water gets to our homes, schools, and businesses, and then safely back to Mother Nature. Where does all the dirty water go? How is it fresh and clean every time we get a glass of water? Who makes this happen? The answer, plumbers. It's the plumbers who are trained, mentored on the job, and have progressed through a 5-year education program that takes them from apprenticeship to a master of their trade. It's plumbers who are committed to a career and have been trained to protect the health and safety of our water system and make sure you never have to think about where it comes from and where it's going. Yes, we're fortunate here in Wisconsin to have an abundant supply of clean, fresh water. But even more fortunate to have a highly trained and committed workforce to keep and deliver it that way.
Plumbers 75, supporting the plumbing trade in southeast Wisconsin for over 100 years. Since they opened their doors in 1965, Mid-City Plumbing and Heating has grown into a highly respected mechanical firm serving southeastern Wisconsin. A full-service plumbing and heating contractor, Mid-City specializes in commercial, industrial, and residential mechanical design, construction, and service. They also operate and maintain a complete underground sewer and water division. And with over 50 years of experience, Mid-City is able to perform service work quickly, cost-effectively, and with quality workmanship that is second to none in the industry. Mid-City Plumbing and Heating and Plumbers 75, proud to be building Wisconsin. For more information on Building Wisconsin, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and be sure to watch additional episodes on YouTube or at our website, buildingwisconsintv.com.
Well, Karen, it's awesome to see these lead pipes being replaced by these professional workers out here. And I wanted to catch up with you because throughout today's show, we've been learning that there are lead laterals feeding water to a lot of homes in Milwaukee and probably throughout our state. And when you hear about lead, all of a sudden there's a lot of safety concerns. So you're a guru on this. Tell us a little bit about the magnitude of the problem that exists here in the city and then kind of relate it to the state as a whole.
Sure. So currently in the city of Milwaukee, we have approximately 76,000 lead service lines.
Wow, that's a lot.
In the state, there's over 240,000. So by far we have the majority, but this is really a statewide problem.
And again, when we talk about lead pipes feeding our homes with water, does that mean that any home that has a lead lateral line has lead poisoning? Or aren't there some preventative measures that have been taken in the last 20 years?
Since 1996, we have treated our water with orthophosphate. And what that orthophosphate does is it coats all of our pipes. So the distribution pipes, our water mains that are running through the city streets, they're not made of lead, but it still coats those pipes. Now, it's also coating the lead service lines and the interior plumbing, which is important because we have a lot of information out there about the lead service lines, but there's also complications associated with the interior plumbing where you may have lead solder or fixtures that have lead contained in them. So with that orthophosphate, that coating is preventing the leaching of the lead into the water. It provides that barrier internal to the pipe.
Sure, but since they are lead pipes, if they shift, if they crack, there is always a possibility of the lead poisoning. So that's why we really want to get in. And not to mention that this is all infrastructure that's, might be 100 years old or more. It should be replaced. And so is that what this program is that you guys are offering? Is that you want to replace a lot of these laterals, if not all of them?
Correct. Our main goal is to replace every single lead lateral in the city of Milwaukee. Now with that, we have to start somewhere. So with this water main project that we're conducting here, we are going through each household and making sure that if there's a lead service line, we are working with our contractors to replace that lead service line.
Well, knowledge is power. And is there any website, online resources homeowners can take to really educate themselves on this whole situation?
Absolutely. We have a lot of information on our website at milwaukee.gov/water. There's an icon that's right on top. It says lead in water. You can find information on brochures, ways to protect your family during construction projects. As you said, knowledge is power.
Okay, and it's far more wide-reaching than just here in Milwaukee. You mentioned 240,000 statewide. Let's get the word out there, get the highly trained workforce that we're fortunate to have here in our state to solve the problem. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
For more information on Building Wisconsin, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and be sure to watch additional episodes on YouTube or at our website, buildingwisconsintv.com. The preceding program was sponsored by the Building Wisconsin Television Network.